The New York winter night was profound, snowflakes dancing in the halos of streetlights. His patience wearing thin, Alara Vance tightened the scarf that covered half his face and pushed the car door open, stepping into the fresh snow. He informed the driver he was going inside to find him. A host inside the exclusive lounge greeted him with a polished smile, recognizing him immediately. He gestured down a long, wood-paneled hall, confirming that Mr. Thorne and his friends were in the farthest suite. Alara, having been to this place to collect Damien several times, was intimately familiar with the layout. He offered the host a polite nod and proceeded toward the end of the corridor. The room was boisterous. Even the heavy, carved oak doors couldn't contain the sound of inebriated alphas. As his hand rested on the cold brass handle, poised to push, a familiar voice cut through the din. Someone was asking Damien when he was finally going to make things official, pressing for details about the wedding. A lazy, alcohol-slurred voice that could only belong to Damien Thorne questioned the very premise of having a fiancé. Another man insisted, wanting to know about the Omega he kept around, struggling for a moment before recalling the name Alara Vance. Damien laughed. It was not the warm, affectionate sound Alara knew, but something with a chilling cruelty to it, like the scales of a serpent. He dismissed Alara as merely a good biological match, someone whose pheromones were compatible enough to produce a superior heir. A vessel, he concluded with breezy indifference. Alara's hand clenched on the doorknob so tightly that a fingernail bent back and snapped, the sharp pain going unnoticed until blood trickled down his wrist. Winter had settled over the city weeks ago, but only in that moment did he feel the Arctic blast penetrate to his very core, stealing all his warmth. He didn't open the door. He turned and walked back toward the entrance. The host who had welcomed him looked surprised but rose with a slight bow as he departed. In retrospect, he should have known. The moment Damien had hesitated to introduce him to his family and friends, it should have been clear. Their 5 years together were a meticulously crafted illusion, a warm glass terrarium shielding him from the bitter winter outside. The love was a lie, a means to an end. An heir was required, and once the vessel had served its purpose, with no powerful family to speak of, who would care where it was discarded? He numbly got back into the car, his voice a whisper as he told the driver to take him home. He was wrapping a bandage around his bleeding finger on the sofa when Damien returned, bringing the chill of the night in with him. Damien came up behind him, enveloping him in an embrace, his chin nuzzling Alara's neck. His breath, laced with the scent of bourbon, ghosted across his cheek as he asked why Alara had come to the lounge but not entered. Damien's hands circled his waist, but then his voice sharpened, turning cold. He had noticed the injury. The bandaged finger, with a spot of red seeping through the white gauze, was held up gently by Damien, treated with the care one would afford priceless porcelain. The faint scent of rose pheromones drifted from Damien's skin, a tender and familiar embrace. For 5 years, he had performed this role of the flawless, devoted lover so perfectly that Alara had truly believed he was a survivor of love's cruelties, grateful for a rare kindness from fate. The throbbing in his hand was nothing compared to the ache in his chest. A bitter laugh escaped him as his vision blurred. He told Damien to stop pretending. Damien was silent for a moment before turning him around by the shoulders to face him. He demanded to know who had been filling Alara's head with nonsense. Damien Thorne was a handsome man, not in the rugged, aggressive way of most alphas, but with a refined beauty that seemed to belong to a classical painting. The bridge of his nose and his brow were like sculpted marble, his lashes thick and dark around eyes as deep as mountain lakes. To be looked at by those eyes was to believe oneself deeply and truly loved. Alara took a breath, steeling himself against the pain, and repeated the words Damien had spoken not long ago. He was just a vessel, a means to a superior air due to compatible pheromones. A suffocating silence descended between them. He finally told Damien that he had heard everything from outside the room, calling him a complete and utter fraud. The warmth evaporated from Damien's face. He stared, his expression blank, the mask of a civilized man finally removed to reveal the predator beneath. His hand came up to gently cup Alara's cheek, his voice a soft sigh. So he had heard. A dangerous light glinted in his eyes. He then questioned Alara's audacity, asking if a low-grade Omega like him had ever truly fantasized about a permanent place by his side. The last flicker of hope that there might be an explanation was extinguished. Heart shattered, Alara shoved his hand away, his voice raw as he told Damien to get away, that he was disgusting. Damien's low chuckle was the only reply. The scent of alpha pheromones suddenly intensified, the rose fragrance becoming overwhelming, cloying, like a silk ribbon tightening around his throat. He was inducing a heat. Damien had been right about one thing. Alara was a lesser Omega, and he was nearly powerless against a prime alpha's pheromones. Alara fought, kicking and punching as he was dragged toward the bedroom. But Damien subdued his struggles with the ease of a trainer handling an unruly pet. Damien's voice was a venomous whisper against his skin, asking what that made Alara, to be so easily aroused by someone he found repulsive. He nuzzled the gland on Alara's neck, his eyes locking onto Alara's like a demon's. Sharp canines pierced the sensitive skin, injecting a potent dose of alpha pheromones. It was the first time in 5 years he had ever been so rough, so brutal. His hands were pinned, and a torrent of emotions. Humiliation, sorrow, and a forced, desperate desire crashed over him. He turned his face away, unable to stop the hot tears that streamed down his temples. Damien paused, his fingers gently brushing away the moisture on Alara's face. He asked if it hurt. Alara could only choke out 2 words, filled with all the pain in his soul. "I hate you." The emotional storm broke him, and he began to sob, his body trembling as he tried to curl into himself. The storm of alpha pheromones finally receded. Damien's gaze softened, and he pulled Alara into his arms, patting his back gently. His voice was laced with a strange sadness as he wondered aloud why Alara couldn't have just pretended not to know, why he couldn't have just stayed Guy by his side. Damien Thorne was the CEO of Thorne Industries, a young, intelligent, and ruthless leader who had swiftly consolidated power upon his succession, taming the fractious branches of his powerful family. He was also a prime alpha with S-class pheromones, whose striking looks made him the most sought-after bachelor in New York's elite circles. Alara Vance, by contrast, was a C-class Omega, an orphan who, before meeting Damien, had survived by selling hot dogs from a street cart. The only thing that connected their 2 disparate worlds was an almost mythical 99% pheromone compatibility. The first time he saw him, Damien had just been pickpocketed. It was impossible not to notice him. A luxury sedan was parked incongruously at the end of a street lined with food trucks and vendors. The man himself was so handsome he seemed to exist on a different plane from everyone else. A tailored suit accentuated his lean frame, and he practically shimmered in the afternoon sun. Alara's eyes had been fixed on him from the moment he stepped out of the car. That was why he saw it clearly when a thief bumped into Damien and expertly lifted his wallet. It was a brazen move. Alara straightened up from behind his cart and shouted that the guy had taken his wallet. The handsome man frowned, and the thief's expression soured as he bolted in the opposite direction. Alara's body reacted before his mind, and he gave chase. A few minutes later, the thief was on the ground, curled up and begging for mercy. Alara kicked him lightly and retrieved the stolen item. The wallet was made of soft, lustrous leather and was clearly expensive. The owner, having finally caught up, saw the wallet in Alara's hand, and his eyes lit up. He made a strange offer, asking Alara to name his price to buy it back. Alara frowned, finding the man's logic bizarre. It was his property to begin with. He tossed the wallet back to him, questioning why he would need his money. After a quick check to ensure everything was there, Alara kicked at the thief on the ground and told him to get lost. As he turned to go back to his cart, a hand with neatly manicured nails stopped him. The handsome man had taken out a thick wad of cash from the wallet and offered it as a thank you. Alara was stunned by the generosity, waving his hands and backing away, insisting he couldn't take it. It was a small thing. He explained that he'd always believed in not accepting rewards for which he hadn't worked. He added that the wallet must be important, given the man's worried expression. Then an idea struck him. If he really wanted to show his gratitude, he could buy a couple of hot dogs. They were, he promised, very good. The man stared at him for a moment, then a faint smile broke through his serious demeanor. He was already handsome, but the smile was like the first thaw of a frozen lake, mesmerizing. Alara prepared 2 hot dogs with all the works and handed them over, again insisting they were delicious. The man took one and, with a slightly clumsy elegance, took a slow bite. He agreed that it was very good and thanked Alara, explaining that the wallet contained something very important to him. He then asked for all the remaining hot dogs to be packed up. As Alara helped him carry the food to his car, his sensitive nose caught the faint scent of pheromones from inside the vehicle, the sweet aroma of roses. The man was an alpha, and a powerful one, to be able to control his scent so completely. Damien thanked him again politely. Alara, leaning against a lamppost, grinned and waved, telling him to come back if he liked them. The next time they met, Alara was cornered in a dark alley. The thief from before held a grudge and had brought a few alpha friends for revenge. Their leering smiles and the oppressive wave of their pheromones made Alara tremble, the wooden bat in his hands feeling impossibly heavy. His own faint gardenia scent felt fragile and weak. The thief kicked him to the ground, sneering that a lone Omega had no right to act tough. He threatened that a few rounds with some alphas would make him forget his own name. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead as he looked up in despair at the approaching alpha, whose leering face filled his vision. The man's hand reached for his collar but never made it. He was sent flying backward in a comical arc. Standing behind him, silhouetted against the alley's dim light, was a tall alpha. His face was dark with fury, appearing at once like a demon and a savior. An overwhelming scent of roses, so strong it felt like thorny vines, enveloped the entire alley. It was the man who had bought all his hot dogs. Alara, dazed, couldn't tell if it was real or a dream. He watched as the man's powerful pheromone presence brought the other alphas to their knees. He then walked to Alara's side, draped his coat over his shivering form, and lifted him from the ground. The warmth of his body felt like stepping into a hot spring after being lost in a blizzard. Damien's voice was cold and detached as he asked his subordinate how to deal with the men on the ground, suggesting they were scum and wouldn't be missed if they were disposed of. Buried? Alara's breath hitched, and he instinctively clutched Damien's shirt. Damien seemed to realize his fear and let out a soft laugh, reassuring him that it was just a joke, that he was a law-abiding citizen and would send them to the police. Suddenly, the handsome profile of the alpha tensed. The scent of gardenias had intensified, wrapping around them both. Alara's eyes widened in horror as he realized what was happening. The shock and the overwhelming presence of the S-Class Alpha had triggered his heat prematurely. and Damien, due to their high pheromone compatibility, was being pulled into a rut. For the first time in his life, Alara spent his heat with the help of an alpha. The room was dark, lit only by a single dim night light. Rose red and gardenia white scents intertwined in the air, one rich, one fresh, yet a perfect, desperate match. It might have been the fear, or perhaps the pain, but he gasped softly, his tears soaking the silk pillowcase. The alpha held his hand, gently and patiently kissing his tear-streaked face. He asked for his name, Alara Vance. Damien repeated the name in a hoarse voice before leaning in to claim his lips, murmuring his own name against them. The next day, a full medical report confirmed it. Pheromone compatibility, 99%. The words were bolded, heavy with implication. So close, yet not a perfect whole. Bound by biology and a moment of shared loneliness, they began to circle the idea of true love. He woke from the memory, pressing his fingers to his aching temples. His pajamas were folded neatly on the bedside table. Not wanting to face the mess of the previous night, he threw on the clothes and went into the bathroom. The water couldn't wash away the sticky feeling on his skin, nor the lingering scent of roses. Downstairs, in the living room, two people were waiting. One was a woman with a severe expression, an alpha, sipping coffee from a delicate cup. The other was a male omega, bright and beautiful, with skin as white as fresh snow, who carried himself as if he owned the place. The housekeeper whispered that the woman was Damien's aunt, Serafina Thorne, and the young man was Leo Vance, from the prominent Vance family. Alara stood at the entrance to the living room, a sense of foreboding in the air. The aunt, Serafina, addressed him with a cold smile, her tone condescending as she asked how long he had been with Damien. Alara had no patience for such arrogance and turned to leave. His wrist was grabbed by the Omega, Leo, who demanded he show respect for his elders. He introduced himself as Leo, announcing that his pheromone compatibility with Damien was a perfect 100%, and that their families planned for them to be married after the new year. He looked Alara up and down with a triumphant smirk, pointing out that Damien had surely never mentioned marriage to him. He sneered, questioning why Damien would ever marry someone so common and uncultured. The absurdity of it made Alara laugh. He retorted that even if things were over between him and Damien, someone with Leo's limited intelligence would hardly be his type. He suggested Leo get his head checked, as that might be the only way to get Damien to look at him twice. Leo's eyes widened in fury. Serafina cut him off, placing the compatibility report on the table. She told Alara he could have a look, stating that while Damien might play around with him, their family would never allow someone of his low birth to marry into the Thorne name. She offered him $5 million as compensation for his time. Years of playing nice by Damien's side had dulled his sharp tongue, but these two had walked right into the line of fire. He informed the auntie that she was just Damien's aunt, and his affairs were none of her business. Furthermore, he was tired of Damien and was thinking of kicking him to the curb, but Damien wouldn't let him go. He advised her to spend her energy persuading her nephew instead of wasting it on him. Then he turned to Leo, asking with a saccharine smile if he could hear water sloshing around in his head. He reminded him that Damien disliked fools, and that 100% compatibility wouldn't be enough to secure a marriage. A full rebirth might be his only shot. Seeing their twisted expressions brought him a sharp sense of satisfaction. As he turned to leave, Leo let out a shriek of fury, grabbed a nearby cup of hot coffee, and threw it at him. Most of it splattered in a brown arc through the air, but the cup and some of the scalding liquid hit his ankle. He winced but walked straight to Leo and slapped him hard across the face. An eye for an eye, paid on the spot. Leo stared at him, hand to his cheek, in disbelief. Alara informed him that now someone had. He then coldly told them both to leave. Leo sputtered that it was Damien's house and Alara was just a kept pet. Alara simply called for security to escort the guests out. After treating his burn, he sat at the table and glanced at the report. The Omega's pheromones were peach-scented, and his compatibility with Damien was indeed 100%. An astonishingly rare probability. It meant that on a biological level, he was Damien's destined mate. That was fine. He recalled the smooth, soft feel of Leo's hand when he'd grabbed his wrist, so different from his own calloused palms. He was from a wealthy family, a suitable match to stand by Damien's side and produce an heir that would satisfy the Thorn clan. He was staring at the report when Damien rushed home. Damien knelt before him, anxiously checking him for injuries, having heard from the butler that Serafina had been there. The worry in his eyes seemed genuine, but Alara could no longer tell if it was for him, or for the vessel he inhabited. He tossed the report into Damien's lap, congratulating him on finally finding his perfect match. Damien glanced at it, then tossed it aside without a second look, dismissing Leo as just the kid of a family friend. Alara felt like he was looking at two different people, the man before him and the one from last night who had called him a low-grade Omega with delusions of grandeur. But he no longer cared. He told Damien it was over. Now that he had found someone with higher compatibility, there was no need to keep up the act. 5 years, no children, it was time to call it quits. Damien's face darkened, and he said Alara's full name, a sure sign of his rising anger. He gave Alara one chance to take back his words. The man who spoke of equality couldn't hide the inherent pressure in his tone. Their relationship had never been balanced. He had always been the one looking up, trying to decipher Damien's true feelings. Alara finally snapped, his voice rising to a shout. He asked Damien if he realized how sick he was. He had believed him when he said he loved him. He had given him everything he asked for. But what was Alara to him? A toy? A breeding machine? He demanded to know if Damien's love was based solely on a 99% pheromone match, declaring he had no need for such a cheap imitation of affection. He called Damien a rotten person, no different from the scum who had tried to drag him into the mud. The harsh words were barbs that wounded them both. His eyes burned with unshed tears. After his outburst, Damien became calm. He was a man who valued appearances even at the end. He asked if Alara was sure, him not to act impulsively because there would be no second chances. Alara pushed past him and went to the bedroom to pack. There was very little that was truly his in the large house. 5 years of his life fit into a single small backpack, no different from when he had arrived. Damien watched him in silence, his jaw tight. As Alara reached the front door, Damien grabbed his arm, demanding to know where he was going. He told him to stop throwing a tantrum, that he could have anything he wanted. Money, stocks, property. Alara looked at him, his eyes red. He managed a weak smile, telling Damien that he had always gotten everything too easily. He had been generous with his money but stingy with his heart. Alara had loved him, and because of that, he couldn't accept Damien's attitude toward their relationship. This wasn't a tantrum. He didn't want what Damien was offering. He pulled his arm free, his voice final. Where he went from then on was no longer any of his concern. He left New York. The years with Damien had provided him with an education and skills, so he no longer had to worry about basic survival. He contacted an old friend, Julian Miles, who enthusiastically invited him to Seacliff City, a coastal town where he found a job as a barista. Julian scooped a ladle of beef from the steaming ramen bowl and placed it in Alara's dish. He joked that if he had been braver back then, perhaps they would have ended up together, and the rich heir would never have been in the picture. Julian had grown up on the same streets, but his family was slightly better off, and he had gone on to become a doctor. He had shown interest after presenting as an alpha, but Alara had been oblivious at the time. Alara just smiled and dismissed the what-ifs. Then Julian brought up the permanent mark. For a moment, Alara wanted to flee. He had Damien's mark. He would never forget the moment the bond had formed, Damien's dark, sweat-slicked brow, his eyes full of fierce love and an overwhelming sense of possession. Julian warned him that he would struggle through his heats if the mark wasn't removed. Alara knew. He feigned nonchalance, saying he would come to the hospital to have it removed and asking if Dr. Miles would be his guide. Julian smiled gently, saying he always had time for him. It was obvious what Julian wanted, but Alara felt like a critic who had seen a perfect performance and could no longer appreciate one that was merely excellent. He decided to be direct. He told Julian not to waste his time on him, that he wasn't ready for a new relationship and that they weren't right for each other. Julian smiled sadly, asking if he still wasn't over him. Alara fell silent, then admitted he wasn't. He explained that Julian, who had loving parents, couldn't understand what Damien meant to him. Damien had pulled him out of the darkest, filthiest place and shown him a new life. He supported all his choices. He spent his precious time filling the voids left by Alara's childhood. Damien had made him feel loved for the first time in his life. He remembered one stormy night, terrified of the thunder, curled up in bed, only to see Damien standing in the doorway, haloed in soft light. He had rushed an intercontinental flight, canceled due to weather, taking 3 connecting trains just to get home and hold him through the storm. Alara confessed that on the night he heard those cruel words, he had even wondered if Damien, after pretending for so long, had started to believe the act himself. Julian insisted that Damien was lying to him. Alara knew, he said with a bitter smile, which was why it was over. He couldn't accept anything less than the perfection Damien had once shown him. But that didn't mean just anyone could replace that beautiful memory. Julian promised he would wait. As Alara was about to argue, a wave of nausea seized him, and he retched. Julian patted his back, concerned. Alara blamed the spicy food. He agreed to go to the hospital the next day to get the mark removed. But the mark was never removed. At the hospital, a single piece of paper struck him like a bolt of lightning. He murmured that there must be a mistake. The doctor assured him the equipment was state-of-the-art. He was 3 months pregnant. Months later, lightning tore across the sky. The air was hot and sticky. Even with the air conditioning on, Alara felt a suffocating heat. As an omega in his 3rd trimester, he desperately needed the comfort of his alpha's pheromones. An impossible wish. The few items of clothing he'd taken that still held Damien's faint scent were losing their potency, even as his need for them grew. At 6 months, his belly was pronounced, and every movement was an ordeal. Tonight, a strange sense of dread kept him awake, his heart pounding with the premonition that something terrible was about to happen. He sat up, reaching for his phone to distract himself. A news alert popped up, the headline a curse in the darkness. Thorn Industries CEO target of assassination attempt, condition unknown. The phone slipped from his grasp. With trembling hands, he retrieved it and dialed a number he knew by heart. It rang until it went to voicemail. Panic set in, and a sharp, tearing pain shot through his abdomen. He found Julian's number and called, his voice choked with sobs, begging him to come over. Thunder rattled the windows as the sky opened up. When Julian arrived, he found Alara curled on the sofa, weeping. His pregnancy had already made him emotionally fragile, and the news had shattered his defenses. He clutched Julian's shirt like a lifeline, sobbing that Damien might be dead and he didn't know what to do. He had never wanted to see Damien again, but he had always wanted him to live. Julian, bewildered, tried to calm him, reminding him to think of the baby. He tried to release his own calming pheromones, but Alara's body violently rejected them. He wasn't his alpha. He needed the deep, rich scent of roses. Just then, the doorbell rang. The electronic chime cut through the storm. Julian peered through the peephole but saw only darkness. He called out, but there was no answer. The bell rang again, more insistent this time. A strange intuition made Alara rise and walk to the door. Julian tried to stop him, but he was too late. He turned the handle just as a flash of lightning illuminated the man standing outside. It was Damien Thorne, the smell of blood and rain clinging to him, his gaze dark and intense. His brain short-circuited. He thought it was a nightmare. Damien's eyes were fixed on him, a hungry, desperate look, as if trying to carve his image into his very soul. His gaze dropped to Alara's swollen belly, and his pupils constricted in pain. The scent of rose pheromones billowed out, thick with a towering rage. He glared at Julian, his voice a low growl, accusing him of letting Alara cry in his condition. Alara reached out and touched Damien's arm. It was warm. He was real. He whispered that he had seen the news. Damien stepped forward into the light, revealing a swath of bandages beneath his open shirt. He had been attacked. He raised a hand to wipe the tears from Alara's face, his voice weak. He was alive, though his handsome face was gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes. As long as he was alive, that was all that mattered. Alara's rationality began to return. He took a small step back, away from Damien's touch, reminding him that there were people trying to kill him and asking what he was doing here. A flicker of pain crossed Damien's face. He claimed his men had taken care of the threat. He told Alara he was there because he couldn't live without him. He promised to protect him, to never let him be sad again, and begged him to come home. Alara avoided his tortured gaze, his heart aching. He reminded Damien that they were finished. Julian, finally grasping the situation, stepped between them, shielding Alara. He demanded to know what Damien wanted, accusing him of having caused enough harm already. The protective gesture infuriated Damien. His eyes became bloodshot as he spat at Julian, asking what right he had to speak. He accused Julian of neglecting Alara, of leaving him alone during his pregnancy, of letting him cry. Damien confessed that he had heard everything from outside. Alara was stunned. He asked if Damien had been spying on him. Damien laughed, a sound full of bitterness. He admitted it, saying he had to know Alara was safe. He would drive for hours from New York just to park down the street from his work, to catch a glimpse of him from afar. He had told himself that if Alara was happy with this other man, he would let him go. But hearing him cry like that, he couldn't stay away. Alara's mind was a chaotic mess. The man who said he wasn't worthy was the same man who had shattered his heart. Yet he was also the man who, after nearly dying, had come straight to him in a storm. He felt torn in two. He demanded to know what Damien wanted, what he was thinking. Damien's laugh was ragged, like the cry of a wounded animal. He said he never should have let Alara go in the first place, that he would chain him to his side for the rest of his life. His expression was wild, a terrifying mix of love and madness. A protective wave of Julian's alpha pheromones filled the space. He told Damien that if he loved Alara, he should respect his choice. The scent of roses exploded, so potent it felt as if an entire garden had withered and died in an instant, releasing a final, desperate perfume. Julian, a strong alpha in his own right, buckled under the pressure, sweat beading on his forehead. Damien's voice was ice. He informed Julian that crushing someone like him would be as easy as squashing an ant. The air was thick with the scent Alara had craved for months. He felt his legs give way. Damien caught him, lifting him from the ground just as he had done in the alley so long ago. Alara grabbed his collar, his vision swimming. He weakly protested, telling Damien to let him go. Damien's voice was resolute as he carried him toward the door. There would be no more choices. Julian roared in protest from behind them. Fearing Damien's ruthlessness, Alara made a deal. He would go back with him if Damien promised to leave Julian alone. He tugged Damien's collar hard, threatening to kill himself if Damien hurt him. After a long moment, Damien agreed. He was a monster, but he always kept his word. The tension left Alara's body. He breathed in the reassuring scent, the pain in his abdomen subsiding. Overcome with exhaustion, he slumped against Damien's shoulder and fell asleep. He awoke to the screech of tires. He was drenched in a cold sweat. The driver was speeding recklessly through the deserted streets. He asked why they were going so fast, a fresh wave of panic rising. Damien held him close, his voice grim, reassuring him it was just a few desperate dogs and that he wouldn't let anything happen. It was the assassins. Just as he spoke, motorcycles appeared alongside the car, their riders brandishing firearms. Damien pulled a gun from a compartment beside his seat, pushing Alara's head down. He ordered the driver to head for the coastal mountains, where his men were waiting in ambush. He explained that they were now targeting Alara to use as leverage against him. He had to keep him close. He hadn't expected them to strike again so soon. He had planned to move Alara to a safe place first. Damien gritted his teeth, adding reluctantly that he had already sent men to watch over Julian. The engine roared. The ominous feeling returned. But their car never reached its destination. Halfway up the mountain, they were forced to stop. Under the barrels of a dozen guns, Alara could barely stand, relying on Damien's strength. Serafina Thorne stood outside the car, smiling. It was her. Damien's expression was cold steel. It seemed his aunt had ambitions of her own. Her previous attempt to install Leo by his side now made perfect, sinister sense. Serafina mocked Damien, calling him and his father fools, both weakened by their attachments to inferior Omegas. Only she was a worthy heir. Damien held Alara tighter, his words forced through clenched teeth as he asked what she wanted. She offered him two choices. One, he could let her kill his unfaithful little Omega, marry Leo, and give her half the Thorn Empire. Or two, he could die in Alara's place, and she would take everything, caring for the grieving widower with performative generosity. Damien scoffed at her greed. Serafina laughed, reminding him that after he had purged the family of anyone who had threatened Alara, no one was left to be loyal to him. She cruelly brought up his mother's death. Damien roared at her to shut up. Serafina seemed to savor his pain, musing that he was as foolish as his father, challenging the entire family for an insignificant Omega. She revealed she knew his attempts to push Alara away were a ruse to protect him. Why else would he have had men watching him 24/7? His mind reeled. He had never spoken of his parents. An intuition told Alara that the answers to all his contradictions were buried in that mystery. Serafina lost her patience and aimed her gun at Alara's head. She told Damien to choose. Damien looked at Alara, his gaze deep and searching, as if memorizing every detail of his face. There was a finality in his eyes that terrified Alara. His mind went blank, except for a single screaming thought. Keep him alive. Without Damien, he would have died in that alley. He was just an ordinary Omega. Damien was so young, with such a bright future. He would trade his life for Damien's. His voice was tight as he forced the words out. He told Serafina she was right, that he had betrayed Damien, removed his mark, and was carrying another's child. He no longer loved him. Damien stared, his eyes red-rimmed, his voice hoarse. He told Alara he wasn't worth it. Almost simultaneously, he turned to Serafina, his tone firm and cold. He told her to kill him as long as she let Alara go. Alara screamed at him, asking if he was insane, if he thought this would win him back. Serafina sighed dramatically at his choice, ordering him to drop his gun and walk to the edge of the cliff. Damien did so without hesitation. A step backward and he would fall into the raging sea below. Alara lost control, lunging at Serafina, but two men grabbed him. He struggled, screaming at Damien, asking why he was doing this, why he always made decisions for him, telling him he hated him. Damien looked back and managed a small smile. He said he knew Alara too well, that he was just trying to provoke him into trading his life for his. Looking into his deep, lake-like eyes, Alara grew calm. A single thought crystallized in his mind. If Damien died, he would jump too. With that certainty, the words were no longer so hard to say. He looked at Damien, trying to smile through his tears, and called him a fool. The baby was his. For a moment, Damien's face was blank. "My baby?" Alara managed to say 3 more words. "I love you." A gunshot rang out. A bloom of red appeared on Damien's chest. He took a step back, lost his footing, and fell into the dark ocean. Alara used every ounce of his strength, breaking free from the 2 alphas holding him, and ran for the cliff's edge. Just as he was about to jump, a volley of gunshots shattered the dawn. A group of armed men emerged from the woods, engaging Serafina's forces. A strong hand grabbed Alara, pulling him back from the precipice. He fought wildly, screaming that Damien was dead and he had no reason to live. A sharp prick in his neck and his body went slack. Before he lost consciousness, he saw an older face, so much like Damien's, with the red sun rising behind him like fresh spilled blood. On the 3rd day of Damien's disappearance, the search parties had scoured every inch of the coastline to no avail. He had vanished into the sea. Alara locked himself in their bedroom, creating a nest from Damien's clothes, surviving on the fading pheromones. His heart was numb. Each search brought a flicker of hope, followed by a deeper despair. Finally, Damien's father, Marcus Thorne, the man who had pulled him from the cliff, knocked on the door. He brought a bowl of warm porridge, telling Alara he needed to eat. If Damien were alive, he wouldn't want to see him like this. His eyes were identical to Damien's, tempered by time and loss. Perhaps it was the familiar eyes, or his gentle tone, but Alara began to eat. Marcus sat beside the bed and asked if Damien had ever spoken of him. Alara shook his head. Marcus explained that it was his fault. He hadn't been able to protect Damien's mother. He told the story of how she, an Omega from a common family, had been targeted by rivals after they got together. Despite his best efforts to protect her, someone had tampered with her car, sending her and the driver off a cliff. He explained that Damien, who had been a happy child, changed completely after her death, developing severe psychological issues that required medication. He had hidden it all from Alara. The strong, stable man Alara knew had been fighting his own silent battles all along. Marcus confessed that Damien's ruthlessness in business and his distance from his father were all part of a desperate plan. He hated Marcus's weakness for letting the family destroy his mother, so he had seized control with an iron fist, determined that the Omega he loved would never suffer the same fate. Alara's eyes filled with tears. He hadn't known. Marcus told him that Damien, despite showing public disdain for him, would secretly stand guard at his house every year on the anniversary of his mother's death, to make sure his father didn't do anything rash. He told Alara not to listen to what Damien said, but to watch what he did. And Damien had done everything. He had loved him, protected him, cherished him. Even when he thought Alara had betrayed him, he was willing to give his life for him. The love wasn't about compatibility or heirs. It was about him, Alara Vance. And just as he finally understood, he had lost him forever. Winter came again. Alara's son was born, a healthy baby boy. He lived in their old house, raising him with the help of the staff. Marcus doted on his grandson, and life found a new, quiet rhythm. Marcus temporarily took over Thorn Industries, using the news of Damien's death to lure out all his enemies, including Serafina, and systematically dismantled their power. Everything was as it was, except the world had lost its color. One cold evening, the first snow of the season began to fall. Alara held his son by the floor-to-ceiling window, pointing out the white flakes. The baby gurgled happily. As he turned his gaze back outside, he saw a figure standing in the distance, wrapped in the swirling snow. He blinked, thinking it was a hallucination. But the figure remained, slowly walking closer, until he stopped just outside the glass. It was the face he saw every night in his dreams. He stared, afraid to look away, lest he vanish. Damien smiled gently and mouthed his name. A string inside him snapped. He thrust the baby into Marcus's arms and ran for the door. He threw it open and crashed into a warm, real, rose-scented embrace. He tried to speak his name, but sobs choked the words. Damien held him tight, his own control failing, his kisses desperate as they fell on Alara's face, his eyes tasting the salt of his tears. His arms were a steel band, the crushing pressure the only way to convey the depth of their shared longing. Damien's voice was a ragged whisper. "I'm back." From the sofa, Marcus cleared his throat, reminding them they had an audience. He seemed unsurprised by Damien's return. Damien finally noticed the baby in his father's arms, his eyes lighting up. He took his son, his arms stiff with awe and uncertainty. He looked from the baby to Alara, a dreamy smile on his face. "We have a child." Later that night, after Marcus had taken the baby home with him, they were finally alone. The passion was immediate, a desperate reclaiming. When they were quiet, wrapped around each other, Alara told him he thought he was dead, that he was going to jump. Damien held him tighter, explaining the plan he and his father had concocted to use his death to eliminate all threats for good. The weeks of pain and fear erupted in a wave of angry tears. Alara demanded to know why he hadn't trusted him, why he had let him suffer alone. Damien held his hands, kissing his knuckles, explaining that any contact would have risked exposing the plan. He couldn't bear even the slightest possibility of Alara getting hurt. He confessed to sneaking back late at night to watch him, to being at the hospital in secret when their son was born, his heart breaking that he couldn't be by his side. His heart softened. Alara brought up his mother and the medication. Damien's eyes became evasive, like a guilty puppy's. He admitted that sometimes he couldn't control himself and said hurtful things. He frantically tried to take back everything he had ever said, that Alara was a vessel, a tool. He confessed he had been terrified to admit he loved him, fearing Alara would meet the same fate as his mother. So he had lied to himself, but his heart had known the truth all along. He was not a vessel. He was Alara, the only precious thing in his world, the person he would die for. Moonlight streamed into the room. The lazy scent of roses and the elegant scent of gardenias filled the air. Damien's teeth grazed the sensitive gland on his neck before finally sinking in, forging their bond anew. He laced their fingers together, exploring every inch of him until Alara was thoroughly marinated in the scent of roses. He held the exhausted Omega in his arms, kissing his damp cheek, and whispered the words Alara had waited a lifetime to truly believe. "I love you, Alara Vance." On a bright winter day, Alara stood by the window, watching his sleeping child. Damien came up from behind and slipped something cold onto his ring finger. He held up his hand. A diamond ring threw dazzling light across the room. 99% was a number of imperfection, the feeling of almost reaching a perfect circle but falling just short. For so long, he had been trapped by that number, dreaming of a hole that didn't exist. But as he looked from the ring to the eyes of the man holding him, the eyes that had never stopped saying "I love you," he finally realized. He had been looking for 100% all along, and it was right here, standing behind him.